is Mike from MPCstuff.com, and today we're going to show you how to install the thick fat pads onto the MPC Live MK2. This particular unit happens to be the retro version. The process is completely the same whether you have the retro or the standard MPC Live II. So, not really many tools necessary for this. You're going to need some scissors or these little snips like this. It's nice to have a little pick. Kind of pick underneath things if you need to. A couple size Phillips screwdrivers. And what we use a lot of times is bags to put the different screws in and kind of label the screws you're taking out so you know which one is which. So we're going to put these here along with our marker. That way we can label each screw we take out. When I take the screws off the back side, a lot of times I'll use a little pencil. I'll show you here. A pencil to mark the different types of screws. These ones are all mostly the same ones, except you'll have like a hex screw here, a hex screw here. So what I'll do is I'll usually put those into one bag. This one, for instance, I'm going to write an H on the bag. So these hex screws that I take out, then I'm going to take I'm not going to do it with the actual Sharpie, but I would take a pencil, that way I can erase it, and put them where the unit has these hex style screws. That way we end up putting the screws back in the correct places they belong. Continuing on, when we're talking about these hex screws right here, those are the only weird things you're going to come across that's not just a standard screwdriver. It is a T8 Torx bit. I am not sure exactly the size when it comes to a hex or Allen key. I will look that up and put that on the website. However, for now, we're just using a Torx 8, which will go into these and remove them. So now I'm going to remove all these screws from the bottom to get this plate off. So first we're going to start out by removing all these. Again, the ones on these corners are hex. We're going to label those and get them off. We're going to take these out as well. These are different, so we're going to make sure any screw that we take out that's different, that we deal with it in a different bag. That way we put them back where they belong. Alright, so we took our hard drive screws out right here. There's 4 of them. Those are different, so I labeled that bag on these HD and pulled that off. Those are there. The one thing to note is the different sizes of screws. These are all going to be similar screws that we take out other than the hex ones we spoke about. But you'll see I took one out here and one out here, and these ones are short. Then we take one out of the casing side right here. You see that one's longer right here. So we're going to label these ones S. So when we're taking these out, we're going to label that one L. That way when we're taking them out, we can put them in our bags. So right here, I'm going to have S and L. That way we know which ones are going back in and where they're going. Okay, for those of you that want to just rewind and come back to this part to know where all the screws go, you can use this starting right now. Turns out these are the only 2 short ones, which is helpful. So we have the 2 shorts here, hex, 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 and hex. The rest of them are the ones that I labeled with an L, and then you have 4 in here that were labeled HD. So again, once you do those, you can see all the ones that are labeled L. Hexes are on all the sides, short ones here, hard drive here. Alright, now we have all our screws out of the bottom plate. We're going to flip it like this, and we're going to take a look at the back. We need to get this panel off here. So you're going to look and you're going to see screw here, 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 and here. We're going to get those ones off, and again, I haven't taken this one apart yet, so I'm not sure what the sizes are going to be, but let's keep a track of them and know which ones are which. And we're going to label the back panel, the ones that we pull out here. Alright, so I got them all loosened up. It's actually a size 14 if you have a socket, just to open it up a little bit. I just noticed when I was doing this, I did miss one screw on this back. So you may have noticed that, and that does make a difference, because that one is a longer screw than the rest of the back panel screws. So you have 5 of the regular size back panel screws, and then 1 long version. And the long version goes right here in between. So now we're going to take the rest of these nuts on that are holding this all on, and go to our next step. Alright, now that we have all our screws out of the back and the nuts, we're going to take this off. This can be a little tricky sometimes, getting these through here. Oh, I forgot one thing. Yes. Done and out. Sorry, it doesn't actually have to come off. I forgot on the inside. There's a... Be very careful when you're lifting this up now, because you'll see when you get it open, you want to avoid hitting any of these here. So now that we have it open, we're going to look through here and see, this is anything that you need to replace. This is what we call the carrier PCB board. A lot of times it gets confused a little bit by being called the main PCB board, which is actually our fault sometimes too, because it's just in my head it seems like that should be the main. That's where you have your USB port. That's kind of the brain of the unit. This one is what Akai really considers the main PCB board, but that has all the ins and outs. So to get to this, unfortunately, you're going to see our pads are underneath here. So we're going to have to get a lot of these parts out in this particular unit to get to the pads. So if it's not something you feel comfortable with, we do install them, so you can email us about the installation or talk to a local professional. All right, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to get this hard drive tray out of the way. This one, you see we have a new screw here, so we're going to label that one. With this particular one, what I usually do is just put this here and put this aside together so we know where it goes. Now you can see we're getting a little closer to where we have our main PCB board. This is the battery if you ever need to replace the battery. The speakers, we haven't had many of those go bad as of yet, but I assume that's something that could go bad at some point and you would need to change out. So again, we need to get to this area. This is where it's going to be pretty similar to the MPC Live video that we have. One thing we want to concentrate on a little bit is these cables here. These are very, very, this one here and these ones here for the LCD, they are very fragile. So just make sure when you're working on this to be very careful with this. And I'll show you in particular right where this cable, this LED cable goes right into here. That's where you really just want to be careful because those connectors aren't available. It's very hard to get this part as well directly from Akai. So be very careful with those cables and any cable for that matter, but those ones in particular. All right, this is kind of the area we're going to be working in most obviously because that's where it's going to go. So we're looking at here, you can see this is where the batteries come off and we have it attached here for the actual battery power of the unit. Please note that MPC stuff is not responsible if anything in these units, if you break anything while you're installing. Keep in mind this is for instructional purposes only, and don't attempt this if it's not something that you think that you can take on. Also, just be careful because there is a battery in there, so there is voltage going on even when the unit's not plugged in. I'm going to go ahead here, which this is one lead to the battery, and I'm going to unhook that from the carrier PCB board. Put that around here. Similar thing, just try to keep an eye and look at the video on where your cords are going to go. So that one's pulled off now, and we're going to go on to getting this here off. This is one that's also similar and same size as the one that we just took off that was part of the hard drive assembly. We're going to put that aside, label it, we know where it goes. This is going to give you accessibility to pull up this carrier board. Like we talked about before, this underside, this is where that LED ribbon is. So first thing we're going to do is these two, which if you have a pick, it's helpful. Also be very careful. These slide out to allow you to pull this out. The blue goes up. Put this thing back together. So we're going to get these out of the way. That way we can get this carrier board up. Now it's going to give us a little more accessibility to move up to pull this other cable wire off. So we're just going to get this out of the way as well. So now we're going to have access to bend this over. Again, be very, very careful with this cord wire right here, ribbon. We're going to get this on. We're going to move it out of the way, and then I'll show you the next step. All right, now we're going to take out this PCB board here to kind of get it out of the way for us to move these things around. I took these out, it's not 100% necessary, but it just makes it easier to get at this board here. These again, this is going to be a different style. It's a little longer. You're going to see these are a little more familiar. So we're going to put these, take those three out. That's what's holding your board in here. now that we've taken these out, you're going to see underneath there's this red, white, and blue cable. Pull that out. And we're basically trying to get this one pushed out of the way so we can get at this. Right here, you have another cable that's going to come out. So that's going to give us accessibility here. Let's see what I'm stuck on over here. Yeah, these are a little different, and this is something I'm not used to since we haven't opened up the live MK2. So right now we're going to take off this here, and that's going to give us access underneath here. This is new because there's two apologize, it's hard to see. There's wires that are leading from the speakers, which we're not in the MPC Live. They are a little hard to get to, but I'm going to use my pick and pull underneath to grab those two connectors to come out. So we're going to do that now. Alright, now that we got those two out, you see them right here with our pick, we're going to pull these two just to make it easier. It's not necessary again, easier just to get this out of the way. What I'm going to do is I've just pulled these two out. The easy way to label these would be with a different color marker. And go like that for each color. However, I don't have a different color marker with me. So I'm just going to put an R, if you can tell. On the other side. There's our R. We'll know that we only did the R, and we won't label this one, so we know this one goes to the right side. Alright, so now we're able to get this out more out of the way. If you want, by all means, you can take that off just to kind of get that out of the way as well. Alright, now that we've moved that out of the way, we can go ahead and turn this upside down. You're going to note right here, this is the Wi-Fi cable. It just kind of pops off. Taking it off is a lot easier than putting it back on, and you'll find that out later. Here, remember, this is the cable we want to be extremely careful with. So we're going to take the tape off, and we're just going to move this over here. So now that we have it out of the way, it gives us access to our pad area. So all our cables here, and as you can see, it's a little bit annoying. There's a lot of stuff going on here, so you're just going to have to remember where all those cables go. Rewinding the video will definitely be an excellent way to figure out where those parts go, and where all the cables go, and watch it backwards. Alright, now that we have that moved over, we are going to start working on this here. So this can stay for right now, but we're going to have to pull up this particular one. As you can see, it's going to need to get out of the way of this speaker. These kind of hold down here. We're going to get this out right now, just take that up. We're going to put that back later, just so we can kind of get the idea of what needs to come out here, and where we're going to have to move these, that way we can get it all out. So we're going to start, and this is a little smaller screw size. These are just mounts, so as of right now, we're going to keep those there. But I'm going to take out these screws here, 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 and there's one in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and take those out now. Alright, now that we have those screws that I just discussed out, we can slide this forward and get the pad tray out of the way. All those screws were the same, so it's helpful that we don't have to worry about it. Put those aside. So now that's going to give us access here to this PCB board that needs to come out for us to replace the pads. This is where on the other side we're going to end up seeing the pad sensors that could need replacement at some point. So our next step is we're going to need to get these out so we can access this board coming out. Alright, we removed these 4 screws, the silver ones, all the same size, similar to all the ones that we just worked with all around the pad tray, and that PCB board there. This will pull up a little bit for us here. Careful, this is a little bit fragile there. So we're going to get that out of the way so we can now access these. These ones are going to be smaller, so we're going to use a smaller screwdriver if we can, and get these small ones out so we can access this board. So there's one here. And remember, there's little black one's going to be a different color. Alright, I got all these screws out here with the exception of this one. It's going to be a lot easier if you get this these two screws out so you can access that screw here. So that's what we're going to do. On the other side, you're going to have a knob and a pop, so we're going to have to get that off as well. All right, this last one right here is going to be a little harder, so we get a really small screwdriver, or at least thinner, right here to get it out of the way here. This one out, which will then give us access to pull this out. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to take off the wax. The bracket. All right, that's going to give us access now to pull this out and change out our pads. We're going to want to take this off here, get it out of our way. This is that red, white, and blue one that we worked on earlier. It's going to go in there. We're also going to want to get this out and pull up and go on to the next step. All right, you're going to have to finagle it around a little bit and make sure this is out of the way and everything's out of the way to get that board to come up out of here. Let's see, we have it here. We still have these attached. You can also unattach them if you prefer. We just go like this, gentle with it. You'll see you have our pad sensors underneath. One thing you can do too is loosen this one a little bit to kind of give you access to move it around to pull that board out. You can also remove this completely, but keep in mind on the other side, you're going to have a knob that's holding that in from coming out. It also has a nut around there, so that nut that's holding it in from the other side will have to come out too to remove that board. If you're going to do it that way, you might want to do it first because now you have everything on this side, so it's something you want to do at the beginning. So now we're going to go ahead and change our pads in. Finally got to the pads. So we have here, and we have our sensors. The sensors, this side, the dull side, is the one that goes against here. This goes towards the pads. So the side, you see the dull side goes like that. Here's our old pads we're taking out right now in exchange for the white thick fat pads. One thing we're going to do, go ahead, if you want to install the corks, with MPC Live and MK2, the corks don't do incredible amount of difference for the sensitivity, but when you install the corks, they come off here, and as you can see, the corks come off, and then they're applied like that onto each. This unit is just a test module that we're actually not going to end up using, so I'm not going to use the corks on this one, but that's only because this unit's not going to be used. But if you want to put the corks on, you can, and that's how they do it. So you apply all these corks onto each, and then go to the next step, which is the pads. Okay, now that we have the pads set in here, you're going to notice one thing. So we're going to figure out where you're going to cut. These pads are made to fit all the different units, so on the MPC Live MK2, you have a little notch that needs to be cut out here to match the original pads. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the notch using these little snips that I have, but you can use scissors or whatever works. Just make sure you get a little circle or even just a cut right there. I'll show you what I end up with. Alright, I made my cut more of a V, so as you can see my cut is going around this little peg here. And then we're ready to get our pad sensors back in. Remember, always, the dull side is going to be up towards that right there. After a little bit of finagling, if you already have your part off right here from the beginning of the video, if that's already off, then it should be easier to finagle in there. You can keep it on there, but it makes it a little bit harder for the thing to come through. So now we have everything set down. You can see we're in there. We have our sensors. We can see right here that they're lined up, and we're good. What I usually do is then kind of don't flip it all the way over, just kind of look on the other side, make sure the pads are protruding properly, and then we're going to get our first screw in. Make sure that when you're putting these screws in that you're not going through any pad sensor or anything like that that's misaligned. So then this is what I usually do just to get in. Remember, these are the small screws I have labeled here for what I call the pad PCB. Go ahead, and put the rest of them in. Remember, the black one goes right there. All right, so that's the rest of it. Now we just need to put everything back together like we started. I've showed you right now where these two, all these screws go on right here. That's one of the harder parts because the pads have to sit there. So now we're just going to kind of follow this backwards. I know that might be a little harder, but you can rewind the video. I also will probably put another fast screen of it going all back together. But once you've done this, you know you need to put it back together the complete opposite that it came with all the same things. So we'll show a little video based on how that works. Alright, so a quick rundown real quick with the screws. We're going to put these all in the back. The back screws are going to go in. We've already done that. This one is the longer screw for the back side. We're going to put all our nuts back on, put all those, and we're going to go to the bottom, and these are labeled. So we have all the two short ones here, the hex on each corner, then the hard drive screws. We're going to put those all back, put that back in, and put our hard drive, because we actually do have one. And then we can see our finished product. These are the white pads. The white pads actually look pretty good on the retro. I wasn't sure if I was going to like them or not. I'm glad I do, because they're already on here and I don't have to reinstall. So now we have our pads. We'll go ahead and turn on the unit and test everything out. So that's the thick fat pads from MPCstuff.com. Only available at MPCstuff.com. They also fit, we have ones for MPC Live, which are the same exact ones. So now we're going to go ahead and test it out. Alright, now they're installed on our unit here. Testing them, they're lighting up. It's hard to tell because this is a really bright setup we have here, but they do light up on each pad. The undersides light up. The white actually looks pretty good on the MPC Live Retro. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but I do. The unit looks great. So again, you can get these at MPCstuff.com. Thank you for watching our video.